Hi guys, it's Leo. My video on anticipatory grief ended up being so long that I ended up splitting it into two parts because 50 minutes of crying through a sad story is probably more than anybody wants to sit through. So I went ahead and split it up. So if you missed part one, I'm going to go ahead and link it up here. And now I'm going to release part two for this week. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the story of my husband's cancer journey and how it eventually led to his death. And I do apologize if this is triggering for some people. Let that go ahead and be a warning. If you haven't seen part one and you're just now tuning in to part two, that some of the details could be triggering, some of the details could be graphic, and if you've been through something like this and you're not ready to hear a story like that, then you might want to just wait for another time to watch this video. So just wanted to let you know before we start. So here we go. If you're having thoughts or feelings of self-harm or suicide, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 800-273-8255.
Always glad to see ya.
Yeah.
Lori, we're gonna let y'all have.
Okay. Oh,
We'll be back.
that's so nice.
Let me see, is that one? Is this?
That's so
Is
nice.
this your phone, honey?
Yeah.
Okay, it must be Lori.
Hey, Daddy, I love you. Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead and give him a hug. He probably can't talk very well, or he might not be able to say anything, but he's got his eyes open, and that means he knows you're here, and he can hear you. Okay? There you go. Anything you say, he can hear you. Okay? All right. So the last 2 months, he really started to go downhill, and so for our second daughter's 15th birthday, it was in May, so that was a month before he died, he rented a party bus, picked her and her friends up from school, took them to Atlanta, like went to this place and talked them into turning on the karaoke machine and letting the kids do karaoke. He was doing a little bit of his dancing stuff. Hey! So wore out, he was hurting so bad, but he didn't let it show. He didn't tell anybody, and he wanted her to have, you know, a really special birthday for her last birthday that he was going to see. And then a month before that, in April, our youngest one turned 7, and he knew also that that was going to be the last birthday with her, and so, you know, he gave her a special doll. And they didn't know at the time that it was the last birthday they were going to have with him, but he did. And so it was really tough. And then after that May, he passed away in June. So after that May, he really started getting a lot of pain. And so when you have cancer in the center of your body, I don't know about other cancers. Maybe it's true for all cancer. I don't know. I can only speak for his. But he had a lot of pain. And so the biggest issue that he went through in his suffering was managing his pain. And we just could not seem to get on top of it. The pain medicine just kept getting higher and higher. And it still was like he was chasing, like the medicine was chasing the pain. And one time he told his doctor, he's like, well, I don't want to take too much of this medicine, you know. And the doctor said, why not? And he said, well, I don't want to become a drug addict. And so the doctor basically said, oh, you're going to become a drug addict. I mean, that's because you're just going to keep taking more and more and more medicine, you know, until the end. And so, and I kept wondering, like, how much more medicine can they give before it kills him? Like, he overdoses on the medicine. And it turns out that they weren't even close to that amount yet, you know, because I kept thinking, what happens when he gets to the max amount that he could take without killing him, and it still doesn't work? And then they can't give him any more because it'll kill him. Well, it turns out that never happened. And, you know, they finally let us know that, hey, there's a lot more that we can give him. But he was on so much. Oh, my gosh. And so after that point, they decided to put him on home hospice. And so they brought in a hospital bed. And they had nurses coming in and checking on him and giving him his medicine and helping him, just taking care of his like personal needs and stuff like that. and he started writing in a journal about, his mind started getting fuzzy because he was on so much medication that he couldn't remember stuff. So he started writing down everything he ate and medicine that he took and how he felt and his pain level and all that kind of stuff. And when you take a lot of pain medicine, you get constipated. So he had to also take like a lot of laxatives or stool softeners or whatever. This is getting kind of personal, but anyway, so he had a hard time going to the bathroom. And so basically he would text me or talk to me on the phone, but mostly text me while I was at work. And our conversations on a daily basis revolved around if he pooped today. When he pooped, it was a good day. And so basically, you know, bowel movements became the center of our conversation while we were waiting for him to die. And so, you know, that shit gets old, literally. And, you know, that's hard. It's hard to deal with. I couldn't hug him. I couldn't lay on him. I couldn't comfort him. I couldn't really hardly touch him because he was hurting so bad in this area that just even touching him made him hurt. And so whenever I was around him, that's all he would do is complain about how much he hurt. I mean, he couldn't help it. I'm not saying it was getting on my nerves. It was just, it made me feel so helpless because you're sitting here with this person that you care about and they're looking at you and they're pleading with you and saying, I'm hurting so bad. I'm hurting so bad. Please help me. Please, can you please call somebody, you know? And there wasn't anything for us to do, you know, except go back to the doctor and get them to up their medicine or call them and see if they can up his medicine. And they never quite upped it enough. Like the pain is here and the pain meds seem to be here. And it just kept doing this. And they never did jump up to this so they could, you know, put enough pain medicine on top of his pain and like manage it. And so, you know, that's basically all it was him hurting all the time and him trying to poop all the time and trying to find something that he could eat that wouldn't upset his stomach, and that was it. And he's losing a lot of weight. And so he finally asked me one time, he said, do you think that if I go to the hospice center, you know, like if they put me in the hospice facility, that they could give me enough pain medicine to make the pain go away? And I said, they probably could. I said, but it might be so much that it could put you in a coma, you know, that maybe you would never wake up. And he said, well, that'd be okay. So when he said that, and I knew that, like, he would rather put himself in a coma and never wake up again. And he was in so much pain. You know, he was at that point where he would just rather just go ahead and die than have to manage the pain anymore, feel it anymore. And then he finally came back and said, I'm so sorry, but I know that you needed me to last until August 12th so that you could get your benefits and stuff. He said, I'm sorry, I just don't think I can do it. He's like, I don't think I can take any more chemo. It's just too hard and it's just too much. So I knew that when he had gotten to that point and he couldn't take it anymore, and he thought that the military was going to take care of me, and he thought I was going to get all these benefits and that I didn't actually get. And, you know, he thought there was a lot of things that he thought were going to happen and didn't happen. But anyway, so when he said that he would, that would be okay for him to get so much medicine, it would go and put him in a coma, and he still wanted to go, then I knew that it was time to send him over there and that, you know, he was ready. And so, there was something else I was going to say, and I need to take a minute to try to remember what it was. So I also wanted to talk about, like, the hospice nurses when he was at home kept giving us paperwork, you know, like power of attorney and legal documents, living will, like a will or whatever. And so it was like all this paperwork to make sure that everything is lined up and, you know, in place. And so they were like, you really need to fill this out. Maybe you can get him to fill this out today. And so I would give it to him, like, you want to sit down for a few minutes and, like, I'll help you fill this out? No, I don't want to do that today. Okay. Like, okay. Because people will ask me, well, if he knew he was going to die, then of course he had a will in place, right? Like, of course he had power of attorney in place, right? You had all these paperwork in place. Well, no, we didn't. And I mean, I'm sure they look at me like I'm so stupid. You know, like, well, if you knew he was dying, why the hell didn't you, get that paperwork done? Well, how do you look at a man who's dying and say, do you want to fill out this paperwork? And he's like, no, I don't want to, because it's a reminder, of his mortality. It's depressing. And how do you push that on somebody who's already dying? You give them what they want. Okay, you help them take away their pain, and you don't push anything else. And so that's how it happened. And I remember him saying, well, it's not like it matters. He's like, you're my wife. He'd never been married before. He said, you're going to get everything. I mean, everything I have, you're going to get it. So, no big deal. Well, as you fellow Wids know, in the Wid fam, it doesn't always work that way. Okay, there's a lot of other shit that goes on. You have no idea what's going to happen to you when you have to go through all this shit when they die. And so, he thought it was just going to be easy peasy, and I'll just get everything and it's fine. So, when he died, no will, no power of attorney, etc. He finally decided, like in the last few days, that he wanted to fill out that stuff. He was like, can you please call in the notary? Can you please call in the notary? And we'll go ahead and do that stuff that you've been wanting me to do. And so they came in, and they talked to him, and they decided that he was too far gone. You have to be in of sound mind. He was on so much medication that he was confused about things. And so they couldn't, in good conscience, be a notary for his stuff, because they didn't know if he was saying what he really meant to say. So by the time he finally did decide he wanted to do that paperwork, it was too late. We went into the hospice center, and his mom and I were taking shifts. She would stay with him in the daytime while I was at work, and then I would come be with him at night. So when they finally, when he was in hospice, he was able to get like one of those I guess a pump or whatever, IV, like every 30 minutes or every 10 minutes, whatever it was, it would beep and he could, do the medicine. So he was able to stay relatively not pain-free, but it was more comfortable. He was getting close to the end. I asked the doctor, how long does it take? When it gets towards the end, you want to know like what to expect. So we pulled him out to the side and we're like, what are we looking at here, doc? And he's like, it could be 3 days, could be a week. He's so strong, his heart is so strong, his organs are so strong, they're not going to just shut down, quickly. He said his body might hang in there for a while. He said, but usually when they stop eating or drinking, it doesn't take much longer after that, because they don't have any strength, because they're starving, Well, he finally was, they had put a catheter in him, so he couldn't go to the bathroom, so he wasn't getting up anymore, because he couldn't walk, he couldn't stand, he was bedridden. And then he stopped eating, and then his feet got really swollen at the bottom, like a lot of fluid were down there at his feet and ankles, and like basically from the knee down, and that meant that his kidneys or something were not functioning anymore, like kidney failure or something. I could be wrong about all the details, but anyway, it just means his organs were shutting down, and so his stomach started to get real big, and it looked like he was fat, and he really wasn't. It was just like a lot of fluid was building up in his abdominal cavity, and then, like I said, he stopped eating, so we knew it was going to be like imminent. And then I was afraid to leave. The nurse was there at night one night, and she said, don't worry about it. His heart, we just took his oxygen level, and it's high. His heart rate is good, and it's strong. She's like, his vitals right now are stronger than mine are. And so she's like, don't worry, if you go home, he's not going to die like in the middle of the night. So, and if anything changes, we'll call you. So I went ahead and went home and called and checked in on him the next day, and they're like, yeah, he's fine or whatever. I mean, for right now, he's okay. And so I was spending the day with the kids. We were just driving around and, just taking in the scenery and just talking and just spending time with them. And I guess we were in a dead zone. We lived, kind of out in the rural area. And so we were doing some driving through the country. And I guess we were in a place where I couldn't hear the phone ring. So I finally got to where I got to a signal. And at that time, I got a text that popped through. So it was a text from his mom. And she said, you can come back now. He's gone to heaven. And then I got a call from the nurse. And she said, you need to come in. There's been a change. And I already knew because I just got the text from his mom, you know. And I said, well, what kind of changed? She was like, you just need to come in. And so I said, well, is he still? And she said, no. Which, again, I already knew. So, come to find out that he had, earlier that morning, the nurse came in and noticed that his vitals were crashing or whatever. And so she said, oh, you know, there's been a change. She said, it's coming soon. Like, it's going to happen pretty soon. She told his mom to call me in because he had always said that, you know, that when he was dying, he wanted to be surrounded by his wife and kids, you know. So, so the nurse told his mom he was going to be going. He was asleep, you know. He wasn't really awake much. He couldn't really speak much the last, like, 2 days. He could kind of moan, and that was about it. I don't even know if he kind of knew what was going on, but I think he could hear us. Anyway, so, she, you know, the nurse told her, go ahead and call his wife and have her bring the kids in because it's not going to be long. It's coming. And she said, okay. Well, she didn't call me. So, and then he died. She stayed with him for 3 hours. Didn't tell anybody. She stayed with him by herself. Finally, the nurse came in to check on him, and she's like, oh, he's gone. And so she's like, well, did you know, his wife's not here. And then she realized that, you know, the nurse was about to call me. So that's why she texted me right before the nurse called me, because she knew the nurse was about to tell me to come in. So she knew he was dying. She didn't tell me. She took that away from me and from his kids and from him. It was really hard. So, and by the time we got the call, we were like 45 minutes away. And so I had to tell the kids in the car before we got there that Daddy was gone. Then we had to drive the whole way. I can remember driving with this hand, and I had my one hand back here, and I was holding their hands, the two little ones in the back. And the second oldest girl, she's in the car with me. She was just, you know, in shock, I think. So we got there, and, you know, he had always said, you know, he had really warm hands, and he would always said, don't let anybody touch my hands. Don't let my babies touch my hands when I die. I don't want them to remember my hands being cold. I always want them to remember my hands being warm. So we got there. His mom was crying over his body, and, you know, I told her we needed the room. We needed to get in there, you know. She didn't want to leave. So we basically had to, it was an altercation. I had to scream at her, and they had to escort her out of the room. And the second daughter, the 15-year-old, she got to the door of the room, and she saw him and saw his body, and she just collapsed. She wouldn't come in. She collapsed and just fell to the ground, and it took like 3 nurses to get her up. They took her to another little room where there was a couch, and they laid her down, and she wouldn't come near his body. Well, when I went over there, I don't know why, but I was paranoid that somebody was going to take his wedding ring, like his mom or whoever was going to take his wedding ring. He didn't want to be buried with it, so I wanted to make sure that I got it. So I went to go take his wedding ring off, and his hands were still warm. Like 3 hours later, his hands were still warm. I don't know if that's weird. I don't know if that's normal. I mean, I've never touched a dead person before except for in a casket, so I didn't know if that was unusual, but took his wedding ring off, and I was like, wow, his hands are still warm. So I told the 2 little ones, you know, you can hold Daddy's hand, it's still warm. Go ahead and hold his hand. So they did. And they were waiting because they said, you know, after the first few minutes or whatever, when a person dies, their body starts to, I guess, decompose pretty quick, and they want the funeral home people to come and get him, and they, you know, they need to, whatever. And they did not waste any time, let me tell you. As soon as they got his body out of there, they started cleaning his damn room up, and they were, you know, making room for the next person, I guess. So, and so they took his body, I walked him down, I held his hand, I walked him down to the hearse, and they put him in there and took him to to the funeral home. And then I went back to go get, clean up his stuff from the room. And his mom made a comment to the hospice nurse. She said, "Yeah, I was there with him when he came into this world, and I was there with him when he left this world." And I said, "Yep, you sure were." And so I don't know how you get over that or how you get past that, but I mean, I can't change it. So I just feel bad for him because he didn't have his babies with him. And I don't know, maybe they would have been scarred by it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they would not have wanted to be with him when he died. I don't know. But it happened, and it is what it is, I guess. So he did tell me when he was in hospice, like, I guess you call it on his deathbed, he had a few things he asked me. And, in the movies, you hear people say, "Oh, move on with your life, and, go find love, and I know you're going to find somebody, and go be happy, and don't let my death, affect you," or whatever. Well, Dewey did not say that. He he had nightmares about me, like, getting back with my ex-husband or when he was sick. He was so scared of that, there's no chance that was going to ever happen. But anyway, on his deathbed, he said, "I'm going to ask you, a few things." There's 3 things that he asked me, and he said, number 1, go back to school, get your doctorate. Well, that's just not in my plans. I got my specialist degree, which is, past the master's degree, halfway to the PhD, but I did get that. Second thing he said was, don't let any other man come in and raise my babies. Well, and I'm remarried now, so I did not say yes to the promise. I just listened to him, and then the last thing he said was, get those kids out of that house, build my babies, that dream house that we always wanted. And so, so I did that. And so that's the house that we are living in right now. It's this house right now. We call it the house that Daddy built. And because technically that's, he died to provide this house for us. And so it means a lot. And it met my needs when I built it. I built it from scratch. When he died, I cried a little bit, but I didn't do a whole lot of crying. And, I've said this in a couple other videos, but my first reaction, when I found out that he died was not sadness. It wasn't even grief. It was relief. And I know that sounds terrible, but it wasn't relief for myself. It was just relief that he was out of pain. He was finally out of pain. You don't know how hard it is to watch your loved one. You might know, but a lot of people don't know how hard it is to watch your loved one just be in so much pain every day and not be able to help them. And know that they're dying. And you can't do anything. You're just waiting around. You're just waiting around for it to happen. And in the meantime, while you're waiting, they just keep getting worse. They just keep hurting more and more and more. And it's never going to get any better. The only way that they will be out of pain, the only way that they're going to be out of pain is for them to die. So you start waiting for it. You almost start wishing for it. And it makes you feel terrible to wish your spouse would die just so they could stop hurting. And that's what it was. And then as soon as you feel that, you start feeling guilty because who wants their spouse to die? You just want them to be out of pain. And you feel so guilty because you feel relief. Because one thing that you're thinking about is no longer in pain. He doesn't hurt anymore. Finally, no more pain for him. So then I wondered for the first few months after that why I didn't cry very much. Why I wasn't laying in bed and not able to get up and not function. And I felt like a bad woman, like a bad person, a bad widow. I don't know what you call it, but I felt terrible because I was like, gosh, didn't I even love him? Like, didn't I even care about him? I'm not even really feeling like, I mean, I felt sad, you know, but I felt just as sad for myself because I was going through so much shit and so much stuff was going on. It's so hard to be a widow. You guys, if you're widowed, you know it's really hard. It's just freaking hard. And so then I realized, or I started learning about it, and I realized anticipatory grief. Like, I had already done my grieving. You know, the minute he got that terminal illness diagnosis, my grieving started. The clock started then. And so when he died, it was almost just like a pause. It was a pause in the grief. And for a minute, the grief was replaced by relief. It wasn't hurting anymore. It wasn't in pain anymore. And maybe a little bit of relief for myself, like I wasn't waiting around for him to die anymore. I mean, that's hard to do. And so, and then guilt because you feel relief, and then going back to grief. And then so anyway, anticipatory grief is something that could cause you to have some guilt feelings. But if you know what it is and you know why, it really helps for you to process that and to know that your grief already started. Your grief started months ago or years ago, maybe. And so you're already, like, you know, into the process of grief. You might even be into the second or third stage or whatever by the time they die, because you've already been feeling the stuff. You know, you've been waiting for it. Just know that if that's how you felt or you're feeling, that it's normal. And, you know, there's no way to really get through the grief except to get through the grief. You know, you just got to get through it. And I try not to have these days, you know, like the days right now when I'm crying. And today's my husband's birthday, JP's birthday. Not the late husband, the current husband. Today's JP's birthday. And it's bittersweet for him too, because his wife died 2 years ago, 2 years and a week ago. And he buried her. He had to bury his wife on his birthday. So now it's not a birthday anymore. It's like an anniversary of a funeral. And so, you know, grief is just a weird thing. And now we've got this group, and we've got each other, we've got the WID fam, and we've got our supporters, and we've got our subscribers, and we've got our members on our Facebook group. And so keep watching the videos, keep helping each other, keep bringing each other up, and like carrying us out of these weak moments. And let's move forward. Let's get to those happy days. Let's let ourselves feel some joy and not have to do this kind of stuff like every day. Let's help each other get through it. Get through these days, you know, together. And I appreciate all of you, all of our viewers, all of our subscribers. I really do appreciate you. And you've helped each other, and you've helped me. And I hope that some of my videos have helped you too. So until next time, let's go on to like a lighter topic next time, because this one was a heavy one and a long one. But until next time, we will see you next week on the next video. Bye.